Alrighty, here we go. Hello and good morning to you guys on a Tuesday. Hope you had a great weekend. Real quick, I'm going to check all of my channels because we're doing some new broadcasting stuff. So I want to make sure. Alrighty, here we go. Why is that doing that? You guys on a Tuesday. Hope you had a great weekend. Real quick, that is weird. All of my channels because we're doing some new broadcasting stuff. So I want to make sure. Why is that doing that? Okay. I get what's going on. Gotcha. Sneaky, sneaky. Makes total sense. Okay, cool. Like my headphones were picking up some other stuff here. Where are we at? All right, cool. I think we're good now. Yay! Okay. Yeah, my headphones were picking up some other stuff from other feedback from other channels. That was interesting. So anywho, here we go. Public schools. Talking about public schools and responsibility when it comes to your child's education. Big, huge, hot topic, of course. But really, what we're going to talk about today is kind of how to sort through all of that stuff and really get a true perspective on things, okay? So when it comes down to the public school and their responsibilities in regards to your child's education, we want to keep in mind three things, okay? It's going to come down to things like funding and standards and the interpretation of the laws, okay? So we're looking at something that is both from federal and from state. And as we know, with lots of laws, everything seems to be left up to interpretation. Okay, so when we read through those and all of that, it's very easy to interpret that in certain ways, which is why you see court cases and when people sue, that kind of thing, okay? Because they feel their interpretation is as such, and then the opposite party feels their interpretation is as such, okay? So it's always going to be left up to that. Not only that, but the whole funding and the standards, okay? In order for schools to, or any organization really, to receive government funding, okay, you have to provide documentation. You have to provide a reason for the government to continue to give you funding, and you have to meet their requirements. And you have to basically dot all your I's, cross all your T's, and make sure that you've checked off the list here, okay, of things that need to be met, criteria that need to be met in order to receive this kind of funding. Now, what's interesting is a lot of times how they go about collecting that data, okay, they use standards, okay, so standardization, blah, blah, blah. I probably didn't pronounce that right, but when it comes to creating standards, okay, we have to keep in mind that we're looking at the middle of the spectrum, okay? So whenever there's like a scale of, we'll say, standards or normalcy, or whatever it is you want to call it, whenever there's like a scale, okay, you have like the middle, almost like a little off there. There we go. We have the middle, okay? And the middle is what we would call the norm or the standard, which is where average falls. And then we have above average and we have below average. Okay, so we have two other ends of the spectrum here. Okay, so what they go by is what's right in the middle. What's right in the middle, okay? Because that's really all they have to go by, and that's with everything, okay? So when they are issuing tests, and when they are issuing like surveys and anything that pertains to collecting that data, okay, it's going to fall within the standards, which means that is the average. Some people are going to be over here, some people are going to be over here, but they're going to operate. Laws, legislation, funding, blah, 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 all that stuff is going to operate around that standard, okay? Not to mention, like we said, things are left up for interpretation. So where does that leave us? So I'm like, oh, great. You just said a whole lot about a whole lot of nothing helpful. But here it is, though. If we know how it works, we can kind of like set our expectations a little more realistically. I'm not saying that people aren't realistic, but if we really think about it, okay, and how everything revolves around like this standard, public education as a whole, whether it's special ed or not, public education as a whole, okay, falls within that. So it wasn't designed to be way over here on the spectrum, and it wasn't designed to be way over here on the spectrum. And then each component within the public school, same rule applies. Those are mandated around that center. They're not supposed to be way over here, and they're not supposed to be way over there, okay? Which means, as a whole, it's just average. That's it. Average. It was designed for average, not to cater to one end or the other. Which means that leaves us as parents up to decide for ourselves what kind of education we want for our child. Okay? Do we want them to standard, which within the standard, we're working with what we're working with here, okay? Or do we want something above and beyond that? If we think about, I'm probably really going to piss some people off, but if we think about, families that have children that truly like excel, okay? Think about the public school. Is that really set up for the kids that extremely excel? Some schools probably adapt a little bit better than some other ones do, but as a whole unit, it's not really designed for students that are going to excel. And so you see a number of families that invest in different types of education or supplementary material for their child to cater to that, okay? That also means that it is possible for families to do the same the other way around, flip the script, okay? We know that the schools truly aren't set up with those kind of capabilities to cater to that. It's set up more around a standard, even within those guidelines. So if you are wanting or looking for something above and beyond outside of those standards, then that's where we find ourselves looking into other options and looking into supplementing and looking into all kinds of stuff, okay? I love Tony Robbins, and he said, we don't have a lack of resources. We don't have a lack of resources. Okay, we're in America. There is not a lack of resources. Trust me, okay? Trust yourselves. Trust anybody. Not a lack of resources. It's America, all right? I just lost my train of thought. Dang it, I hate it when I do that. Not a lack of resources, but what he calls a lack of resourcefulness, which is the ability to seek out these resources, utilize them, pick and piece whatever you got to do to collect what you need to make happen what you want to have happen. Okay, so a lot of times when we're dealing with this whole school system thing, I see families and parents spend a lot of time and energy engaging in battles with the school. Now, am I saying that's right or wrong? No, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, because lots of great things have come out of battles in history. Okay, we think about everything in history that has kind of like changed and turned, like those pivotal moments. They have come out of a struggle. They've come out of some kind of a battle. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what I would suggest is I would caution your own resources, okay, and your energy and your time and your focus and where you are funneling that, okay, and is that what's best for your child? In the meantime, we have the child kind of hanging out here, okay, doing their thing, okay? So is the way that you are approaching it, is the way that we are going about it the most effective way for the child? What's happening to the child, during this process? And we always kind of talk about, in our group, we always kind of talk about like energy and how wherever we're focusing, that's where our energy is going to go. And that is what our state is going to be centered around. So keeping that in mind, are we being constructive? Are we coming up with more ideas? Are we being resourceful? Are we learning how to overcome obstacles and challenges and those kinds of things? Or are we, banging our head against a brick wall? I don't know. Those are all things to take into consideration, especially with the fact that we are dealing with government mandated stuff, I'll just say stuff, okay, which falls within these constraints of these standards, okay? Might be fair, might not be fair, however you look at it, but they have to take the measurements somehow, some way, just like, doctors or anybody that gathers data. Okay, we have to gather the data, and within that, there's going to be the average in the middle, and then the high, and then the low. Okay, it's how that works. So we have to keep that in mind, and keep in mind for ourselves, what is it that we truly want for our child? If you want my opinion personally, okay, just because that's my personal opinion doesn't mean I'm saying you have to do it. But for me personally, I went into secondary education initially in college, got all the way up to student teaching, and I withdrew because I hated it. Hated it. Why did I hate it so much? I hated all of the strings, like all of the hands that were involved and all of the regulations and all of this and all of that. And it really, I wanted to go into teaching because I love to teach. I love to work with people. And I love that relationship between teacher and a student, or coach and that kind of a thing, right? But within the guidelines that we teach in the public school system, I personally felt that it chipped away from different ways that I wanted to express and ways that I wanted to teach and that kind of thing, right? And it drove me absolutely nuts. Right? So I made the decision to leave teaching in the public education system and step outside of that box and create my own way to teach that was outside of that element. So for me personally, I decided once I left that teaching experience in college that when I had my own children, regardless of whether we were going to deal with ADHD or not ADHD or some form of special education or some form of disability or whatever, regardless of that, I personally was going to keep my children out of the public school system. Just because of different beliefs that we have, and the fact that I know that the public system is designed around standards, and I want more than that. I want more than that for my children, more than just the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Above and beyond that, okay? So that's just me personally. So I'm just speaking to you about this just so you can keep some things in mind, put some things in perspective so that it could help you as you filter through this and discover new ideas, find new resources, and create ways to make the learning experience better for your child, whatever that may be. Now, if you want to, we did a clip a couple weeks ago on different, no, it was back in August. Yeah, it was back in August. We did like a whole back to school video series. And within that video series, there is a short little clip on, what was it? Above and beyond public schools. So it goes into details about different types of school systems and ways to approach education that is above and beyond public schools. So if you want to check that out to kind of get the gears and rolling, by all means, check that out. Would love to have you do that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap that up for now. Been talking for a minute here, but I think you get what we're saying here. Okay, there's so many different ways that you can and look at that, and at the end of the day, what it boils down to is realism, being realistic. Okay, so get really clear and defined as a parent on what you truly want for your child. Do you want them to have the standard, or below the standard, or above the standard, or whatever the standard? What truly do you want for your child in regards to education? Truly, what do you want? Get clear and concise on that, and then from there you can make your decisions based on, well, this is how this really works, and this is how this really works. Does that fit my bill? Does that fit my bill? Because remember, at the end of the day, you have the choice. You're the parent, you have the choice, right? There's power in that. Power in that. Don't forget, right? Chin up. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and probably I think we're scheduled to come back on Thursday, and then after that we're going to cut back on our broadcast, and my boys are going to give you a little special treat. We wanted to do story hour with you in the evening, so we're going to be doing some bedtime stories once a week during the month of October. We're calling it Fall for Reading, so check that out. It'll be fun. Anywho, I'm off, and you guys have a lovely day. Love you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you soon.